All right, 2013 Dodge Caravan 62 TE 6-speed automatic trans. The problem with this, why we got this job in, this came from a Chrysler dealer and had a P0740 code, a lockup code, which is a mechanical issue. So we're going to be opening this up, doing an overhaul. Probably not going to see too much because we actually picked the car up from the dealer, drove it back here, and when they got back here they came to question me what was the problem because it shifted fine, but when I scanned it, it had a 740 code. So we're going to be overhauling this, going to open it up. Again, may not see too much wrong, but on the outside you got a couple of sensors here. You got one on top, which is your input speed sensor, and you got two on the side. You have an output speed sensor and a transfer gear speed sensor. Okay, on the other side here, you got your solenoid pack kind of sticking out of the side pan. And this is a filler tube, but there's no dipstick in here. You actually need a tool to, and the tool looks like a dipstick. So you need a tool to check the fluid level in this. So we're going to open this up. I guess the way we're going to do this, I'm going to take the differential out first. Then we're going to take the pump drum and gear train out. And then what we'll be able to do is pretty much stand the unit up where the diff would go. And probably grab out the valve body. And then I'll pull the back cover off, because back here you also have a set of drums. You have your low clutch drum and direct drum. So you have an additional set of drums. And the gear train, the pump and drums and stuff is kind of going to resemble the 604. As a matter of fact, the clutch packs are the same. You know, in the middle you're going to have your 2-4, in the back you're going to have your low reverse, and the 3 clutch drums, the 3 clutch packs. In the input drum, you got the reverse, the overdrive, and the underdrive. So I'll get a little closer to the trains, and we'll start tearing this down. All right, so I got these bolts out. I just took them out, and I realized I forgot to put the camera back on. So they were T45s here, pretty simple. All right, now we're going to separate this here from the case. Comes out clean. Yeah. Okay. There's that. So we'll put this aside. Alright, so now we're going to take the cover off. I'm going to have to move this. I'm going to get these bottom bolts out. Alright, so let me just zip out these bottom ones here, and I'll put it back on the bench. Okay, let's see if we can tap this loose. was here. Okay, and we got this here. And we got this one here. There, and your seal comes right out. Got to put the two halves together and knock the seal in. So let's get this out of the way. All right, so let's take our sensors out. And the transfer. Yep, gonna move these aside. Alright, the next thing we're going to take our pump bolts out. See if we got to get a slide hammer in here. Okay, we got threaded hole there. Alright, so we got a threaded hole down here that we can use for a slide hammer. Surprised there's not one. Okay, it looks like there is another one. There normally is two, so you can walk the pump out. Looks like it's up here. Okay, here's your pump. Alright, pull the drum. Here's your input drum. Kind of, you know, looks just like the 604. There's the ring gear, splines into the reverse. Alright, so let's see if we can get this snap ring out. Let's see, where is the end? Alright. snap ring. You can go either way. Let's see if this. All right, so here's your 2-4 piston. Here's the Belleville spring. Let me just move this camera down a little bit so you guys can see. All right, 2-4. Like I said, these are good. Not going to probably see too much with this because of the code it had, which was the 740 code. All right, here's your planet. Like that. So here, washer. All right, and now we have to get the, I guess it would be like like an intermediate plate. There's 2 snap rings, one on each side of it. And this is the one that can't move. I mentioned that on the video I did for the 604. Okay. Okay. All right, this has a bevel, and that's going to face up. All right, so let's get this pressure plate out. Okay, now there is another snap ring, a thinner one. Okay, so just like before, you have the snap ring, the plate, and the snap ring. And when this is all in, this plate cannot move. I did, one time I did one of these where I guess maybe they couldn't find the snap ring, so they used 2 of these thin ones, one on each side, and the transmission didn't work right, so it came to me, and I opened it up, and that's what I found, and fixed it up, and then it was okay. So you gotta put, once these 2 snap rings are in, this plate cannot move up or down at all. And it's not like the 604 where if you were to buy a 604 plate, it'll come with the snap ring. I don't think that's the case with the 62 TEs. I believe that everything is sold separately, so you have to measure it, the thickness, and order what you need. All right, so now we're going to take out the low reverse clutch. Okay. No reverse clutch, not too bad. And these are all, pistons are all bonded. All right, so you know what we're going to do? We're going to swing this around and take off the back cover. We're going to zip this back cover off right now. Just get these bottom bolts out. And here's a little tension bracket that goes across the bottom. All right, so I believe they are all out. this area is very thin, so this bent a little bit here, so that's easy to straighten out before I put it back on. Alright, now this piece should come right out. This keeps the lube, but sometimes it's a pain. Now let me take a look at that. Let me get rid of some of this oil. Give me 1 sec. Okay. Alright, so we're going to get this this lube out, this scavenger plate, I guess they call it. And there's a little tab in between the case and the part, so little tab right here. So you just kind of got to pry away on that a little bit, and it'll come right out. All right, so the next thing we're going to take this, got to bend all these tabs out and take these bolts out here. Take that locking mechanism off and take the transfer gear off. Let me get my socket. Should be a 15. And so pretty much this piece holds the big nut so it doesn't turn, and then you have the part that locks the, I guess, the two bolts so they can't come loose. Alright, so now we got this one. I think maybe that's possibly 1.5 inches. Yes, it is. This is attached to the rear planet. Alright, here's that large nut on the end. On the end. And okay, right here is the rear planet. You have the spacer between the two bearings, and one thing you see has all these. This, you know, resembles a 604, but you see all the teeth on the exciter ring here. 604 has much less, but you possibly, because it would fit, make the mistake and put a 604 in. So you want to just make sure you got the right amount here. Okay, so maybe what we'll do now is take these bolts off the side cover here. Then we'll stand this thing up. Alright, the one thing I do want to do is mark where these studs go, because there is a cover that goes over this valve body. I think there's one more here, yes. Okay. on my tin. Right, this is a locking washer to keep that side cover on. Now over this cover, there's this protector. So there's a couple like star washers that keep this thing on. That's what was on there. All right, so let's take this off. Right there is your valve body solenoid pack. Alrighty, and right down in here, in this area here, you would see it in the case, is actually a pressure tap. That's right there. Alright, so now we're going to flip this up, take the pan and filter down, because there's the tubes. There's 3 tubes that go from the valve body like to the low clutch and direct clutch. And one tube is lube, one tube is for the low clutch, one tube is for the direct clutch. A little bit of a pain to get out, but I'm going to stand this up, take the pan down, and we might be able to pull the tubes and the valve body out as one. So let's stand this up. Need my 8. My 8, here it is. Alright, taking the pan down. Pan was actually dropped already to drain the unit. Okay, not really too much at all in the pan. All right, so now we need our need a T25, which I think I have to get out of my drawer. We're going to take the filter down. Let me just grab that. Okay. Get it out of the seal. Alright, here's your filter. And I'm going to take this little bracket out. This is probably where it stops when you're checking the fluid level. It'll bottom out when you're using that stick, that, you know, which is the dipstick, which is, you know, they consider a tool. Okay. I have to get my torque socket for that one. Okay. pan is down. So now what we're going to do, I'm actually going to get rid of some of this oil again, and then we're going to take the valve body bolts out. I believe they're 7mm. And then we're going to see if we can slide this and the 3 feed tubes out. Well, the 2 feed tubes and the 1 loop tube, but they're all together. Slide everything out as one on the valve body, and then we'll take this section out, and that's pretty much it. All right, so just give me 1 second. I want to clean up some of this oil. Okay, so we got your solenoid pack. This is going to stay on because the bolt's from the other side. This right here where this wire goes is your range sensor. Here is your line pressure sensor. And around here is your TCC solenoid. Alright, so we're going to start disconnecting this stuff. Of course, this TCC solenoid, of course, is going to be changed because that's one of our components. Okay, I'll let it go like that. Now we're going to take this valve body off, hopefully with the tubes as well. All right, first we're going to take the D10 off. It's a number 25. Okay, now all these bolts that hold the valve body down are 7mm. And I believe there's like maybe 20 of them. Sometimes I had to do this in the car. You know, taking these valve bodies out and changing out the solenoid packs without taking the unit out. A little bit of a pain, but it could be done. All right, so we're going to move our range sensor to get these bolts out, move it out of the way. Take out all the 7mm. There's some forks in here, but they hold the valve body together, so those are going to stay in. One more. Alright, let's see if we can get this thing to move. Yes, we can. Alright, so now we've got to be careful with this range switch because, you know, the manual valve is hooked up in here. So between that and the tubes, it's a little tough to get out. It's even worse when it's in the car. Okay. See, actually, what's probably going to have to happen here is we're probably going to have to separate the tubes from the valve body. All right, let's get... Very careful here. I don't even have the O-rings showing yet. O-rings are showing down here, which I'd rather have it the other way. so you know what we're gonna do? I'm gonna do something a little different here. Since it's on the bench, we're gonna slide the rod out, and we're gonna take the rain switch out, and then we'll be able to slide the valve body out. A little harder in the car, you know, the tubes are being a little stubborn, so since it's on the bench, we can do it the other way. All right, so we got to knock the roll pin out. All right, so let me just get set up for that, because there's also a very little Allen key in here that's also keeping the rod in place. So I just want to get set up, get all my tools ready to go, and then we'll take it apart together. So just give me 1 second. Okay. All right, so I'm all set up for that. All right, so the first thing we do, there's a roll pin in here, right on the edge here, so we're going to knock the roll pin down. All right, there's your roll pin. All right, now, there's a little tiny rod also in here that's a little tiny pin that's holding the linkage rod in place also. Now, this is the size of the Allen key that is used to get it out. It might be a 2, 2.5, not sure. And what I do, it's a little, you know, it's a little tight. I don't want to force it. It's a little tight. So I take a small punch and I just give it a couple of shots with a light hammer. And that'll loosen up the threads. And then it comes loose, no problem. And I'll give you a close-up of this thing here. So that's what this looks like. So now this rod should slide out, and we'll be able to get the rain switch out, and it'll be much easier to get the valve body out. When it's in the car, it's a different story, because you really can't take the linkage out. Disconnected from the manual valve, this will come right out. There's your rain switch. Alright, so we'll pull the linkage, pull the whole rod out. Here's the linkage rod. That roll pin goes there, and that other little pin with that Allen key head goes right in here. Okay, now let's get this valve in. Okay, there's the tubes. All right, so here's your valve body. What I'll do maybe is I'll just give you guys a shot of this just like this with the accumulators. It's okay to, you know, if you want to take a picture of this or keep the accumulators how they came out is fine, but as long as the springs are all the same, it doesn't matter where you put them back because they're all the same. So let me just move the camera and I'll give you a shot of this, and there's also the seal for the 2/4 clutch is here as well, and we'll pop that out. All right, so let me just give you guys a shot, show you what this thing looks like, and we'll take that 2/4 seal out. All right, so there's a shot with the valve body off. You got the 6 accumulators here, and here is your seal for the 2/4, which will slide out. And you want to take note of how this comes out, because sometimes I have heard of people accidentally putting it in backwards. So the O-ring is going to face closer. And also this seal actually will come out of here. Let me just show you that real quick. O-ring will face closer to the valve body, and this seal actually will come out, so we can change this. We can change this seal. And this sits against the feed hole. So you want to make sure you put it in this way and not with the rubber seal facing up. This is the wrong way, and that's the way it should go. All right, so let me just get this camera back to where we were. And we got to take these accumulators out. All right, let me flip this thing up, get these accumulators out. Okay, see this one has 2 springs in it. This one also 2 springs. I really haven't seen much difference. You just got to be careful. Maybe one of them would have 1 spring in it, but if they all have 2 springs, they're pretty much the same. 2 springs. And now the other row. All right, that has 2. This also 2. And this also has 2. So pretty much the 6 are all the same. All right, so now what I want to do, which I didn't do yet, before we take the low drum apart, I want to get the low reverse piston out. All right, let me get my snap ring pliers here. Got a big snap ring on the holding down the bell, but normally if you just spread it, you can start to get it out. And then what I do is I use my seal puller to pull it out the rest of the way. Okay, so there's that snap ring. You need a kind of like a special tool to put this thing in. I use this right here. This depresses, you tighten down. This will push it down. You put the snap ring in around, and this sits on the bottom where the transfer gears go. It's kind of like a press. And I tighten it down and pushes it down enough to get the snap ring in. All right, here's the Belleville. And let's see if we can get this piston out. Here is the molded piston. And there's also that dish they call the dog dish. We got 3 torque 25 bolts holding that in, and that always gets changed when you buy an overhaul kit. It should be included in the kit, just like the 604. So overall, it's not a bad trans to do. I mean, it looks exactly like a 604. Here's that. Houses the low reverse piston. The big difference is that what we're going to take apart now. All right, and also let's get this bypass valve out. All right. Alright, so let me get set up for this here now. I'm going to get rid of this oil again, and we've got to take this big nut off, take the gear off. Actually, I'm going to be standing it up for that, and finish tearing this thing down. So let me just get rid of this oil, I'll be right back. Okay, so when you get this big nut off here, I got my socket ready. This actually is a 2-inch socket, 3/4 drive. I got a reducer in there to make it a 1/2-inch drive. See if this can take it off. Shouldn't be a problem. Okay, this out. Threads look all right. This will lift right off. And again, you're gonna have a spacer. And right now, this, I believe there's a tool to get these out. But let's see if we can just get this thing to move. There's a snap ring. Pretty heavy snap ring we got to get out first. Okay. And this is flat on one side and again beveled on the other side, so the bevel faces up. Now let's see if we can get this thing to move. These things are normally in here pretty tight. Let me get another screwdriver here, see if I can do both. Get this thing to move. Normally what I would do is loosen a couple of these bolts. I think I'm going to have to remove this to get this apart. Alright, so we're going to take this whole drum setup out. There's a snap ring, real pain to get to holding that together. Now below here, we have a planetary set. Alright, inside this planet set, you got to be careful not to lose it. Let's see if it'll come out. No, it's not coming out, but there's like a star washer in here, kind of. And sometimes it falls out. Now, what I'll do is I'll just take this thing apart, get it out so I can show you. Okay. All right, the last thing that's in here is just the pinion gear. This is just a couple of bearings. Leave that T30 bolts. Let me just turn my lights back on. So they're either T27, T30 bolts. I recommend if you did want to remove it, I'm going to probably remove it just to make sure everything's okay. Hit them with a shocker, because I believe there is Loctite on that, and if you just try to get it out, it's either going to be very tight, you may break the torque bit. So I would just hit it with a shocker to get them loose. Alright, so let me just get set up here, and we're going to work on the low clutch and the direct clutch drum. A little bit of a pain to get apart. I'm going to probably take some of the bolts out of that race anyway, and we'll go through those, and I'll be back in a minute. Alright, so I want to take this race off, and I got some of these loose. The last couple, I used the shocker to give it a shot, and it comes loose instead of, because it's very tight, and I'm afraid I'm going to break my bit. Okay, I tell you, give it one shot, they loosen right. Okay. Now let's get those out. This way the shaft will come out when we get the snap ring out on the other side. Okay, so now this should come out. Okay, so now there's a snap ring on the other side, so once we get the snap ring out, the shaft should come out unless it's being held by the rings, you know, the sealing rings. But let's flip this over. All right, now there's a snap ring down in there. It's a little bit of a pain to get out. All right, let me grab my other scribe. All right, let's see if I can do this quick. I gotta find the opening here. Now let's try this again. Okay. There's that snap ring. A little bit of a pain. You need a couple of really sharp scribes to get that thing out. All right, now, sun gear. All right, now, you got a bearing here that's not gonna, the drum won't come out, you gotta remove the bearing. So let's take the snap ring out. Make it a little easier to remove that. Okay, now we'll be able to remove this. Let's find the opening here. Okay, you want to be very careful with this stuff. This comes apart. All right, now this will slide out. Okay, and you have a bearing, you know, sits here. Alright, so we want to be very careful with this stuff. Now let's see if this will slide out. Okay. Alright, here's the shaft that you have your rings on. You want to change these rings. Alright, now one thing real quick, this low drum here, this has a sprig. All right, and this can actually, it can go in this way and it can go in this way. So you just want to take note, you know, this side has the snap ring on it, so we know that faces down. So you want to just take note, actually this side has the snap ring too. So maybe what you should do is mark it. You know, as soon as you pull this thing out, if you got a grind wheel or something, just put a marker so you know that that faces up. Actually, I'm going to do that myself right now. So give me 1 second. All right, so I got my drawing mark on that. So we're right there. So I know which way that's going to go. Let's take a fast look at these frictions. Okay, so we're probably not going to find too much wrong with this. Okay, these things are pretty good. Alright, here is this planet. Let's see if I can get this snap ring out. I want to show you what can possibly fall out. And you want to be very careful. Okay, if this gets caught on the gears right, this little thing here, this thing can fall right out. So you want to just make sure that it's, you know, you can put it in here, and then you can put the planet back in, and it's in. I guess it acts like maybe a washer, but I have seen them fall out before because it'll just go right through the gears, you know, as it's turning, and it'll come right out. So you want to watch that. All right, now let's take a look at this pump. All right, let me get a socket. Some of these things are a little tight, so I gotta use a chrome socket. Okay, pump gear, not bad. Thing's got a lot of miles on it. You know, it's like I don't know if it's like a sort of a taxi or transports elderly people, something to that effect. With the amount of mileage on it, this you know, transmission's in pretty good shape. But we're gonna do this up because they probably do 50,000 miles a year. So this pump is very nice. All right, the last thing we're going to open up is this drum. Take a look at these clutches here. There may be a bearing. Yes, there is. Don't lose that. Got a 4-tab washer here, which goes on here. Okay. These are reversed, just like a 604. Okay, we got one. There's two in this one. Okay. I'm going to get this snap ring out so that we find the end. All right, and I just heard that bearing drop, so we don't want to lose that. All right, here's the bearing. That goes on pretty much, you know, it right there. All right, so we're going to get this snap ring out, which will remove the overdrive clutches. Even these are very nice. Underdrive hub. Got a bearing here. And on this one you have this underdrive clutch hub. You have a 5-tab washer that went here. And we have a couple of washers here. Okay, we got this one, and to keep that from spinning, you got this one. It goes, kind of sits just like that, you know, in between. And also, you know, in the 604s, you find these bushings bad all the time, and this thing moves. So to keep the overdrive clutch from burning out, Sonic sells the one-piece bushing. One of the first 62 TEs that I did, I saw it was kind of loose. I didn't really like the bushings. So I called Sonics and I says, hey, can I use one of those bushings in the 62 TE? And they says, no, you can't. So I ended up, the bushings were bad, so I ended up just buying like a new aftermarket clutch hub. Wasn't that expensive. But I just want to make you guys aware of, they said do not use the bushings. I says maybe because there's got to be a little bit of play, or I don't know what the reason is, to be honest with you. But when I questioned them, they said do not put one of those bushings. It's the one-piece bushing which has the hole in it, you know, and you knock it in. I do it on every 604 and like 606, 42 RLE. But they said not to do it on the 62 TE. All right, so we're going to take this cushion spring out. This is a wavy one. This goes on the bottom. Then you put the pressure plate and put the flatter one on top. All right, so now we have another one of those intermediate plates that cannot move. So let's find where that opening is. Okay, here's the opening. Okay, here's the plate. Take one of these out to get the thinner snap ring out. Let's find that opening. Okay, there it is. All right. And then the underdrive. Frictions. Everything looks pretty good, but the amount of driving that they do, I'd rather just put a banner kit in this thing. Okay, here goes my lights again. Now let me just turn my lights back on. We'll disassemble this drum real quick and finish it up. All right, so now we want to take the input shaft out, which is another snap ring. See if I can find that opening. Looks like it's right here. Yeah, okay. Yeah, this stuff's a little tight. Little tiny snap ring, hold that input drum in. Here's the input shaft. You got 3 rings on that. All right, now I'm just going to take this over to the foot press and take the snap ring out. We'll disassemble this drum together, and I think that's really about it. All right, so give me 1 sec. I'll be right back. All right, so what I do is I take this big washer. It's out of like a 46 RE. I put it on top like that. My tripod goes on. I use the foot press. It puts it down evenly, and it comes right out. So we got our snap ring. Here is our balance piston. Okay, big return spring. All right, here is, let's say this is the underdrive apply piston. All right, now we have another snap ring in here, which I have to get my pliers, which are right here. Okay, so we're going to take the snap ring and I want to show you something on the snap. If you do not put the snap ring in the right way, as soon as you put this thing in drive or reverse, the thing's going to pop right out. I got to get it out first. right, now you really have to look at this because it's easy to miss. I don't know if you guys will be able to see it on the camera, but this side of the snap ring is flat. This side of the snap ring inside has a bevel. This has to be facing you when you're putting this together. If you put this thing in like this, as soon as you hit drive or reverse, this sucker's gonna pop right out and this car is not gonna move. So this here, and by the way, how do I know that? Because it happened to me once. This bevel has to face up, and when you put it into this drum, so you got to really look at this snap ring. All right, so now let's take this out. Your piston apply housing, I guess you would call it, and the two pistons. We got the overdrive and the input. 1 and 2 right here. All right, so as I figured, really didn't see too much with this, but we're going to do an overhaul. We're going to change the solenoid pack. We're going to change the TCC solenoid. We're going to change the converter. Do any updates that have to be done, and get this guy back on the road. So, 62 TE 2013 Dodge Caravan with a PO740 code. I thank you guys for watching. You guys have a great day.